Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 21st and tonight's movie is Next of Kin. This is an Australian horror movie from 1982. Apparently a young woman inherits a house and with the house comes a lot of issues. Apparently Quentin Tarantino likes this movie. And yes, I did see bare feet in the trailer, but I'm sure that's not it. Obviously, America and the UK have a lot of representation when it comes to iconic horror movies, but Australia is a little bit less so. In fact, the argument can be made that the most influential and famous horror movie from Australia is The Babadook, which is relatively recent compared to, the vast scope of movies out there. Maybe Next of Kin is a forgotten gem, one that deserves to be a classic. Or maybe not, I don't know, I'm gonna go watch it. I have to say, that movie was quite okay. I'm giving Next of Kin a 6 out of 10. I mean, it's decent. There are a lot of good ideas in this movie, but I don't think that they come together properly. Quentin Tarantino has compared this movie to The Shining, and you can definitely see the influence here. I'm not calling it a ripoff or derivative, it's just you can see some parallels. Not really in the story or the characters, but more in some of the scenes. Our main character is a woman named Linda who inherited this big house that's being used as like an old folks home that used to be owned by her mother. The movie doesn't really make it clear how long Linda had been living and working there before then. In fact, I dare say this movie isn't very clear about a lot of things. For example, there's this other character, Barney, who I had no idea what their relationship was. I mean, clearly they're romantically involved, but are they exes? Or are they together? Are they friends with benefits? I don't know. If that was ever established, I don't remember hearing it. That's kind of how it is with everybody. There's not really any introductions. Characters just appear. Also, I don't know what kind of budget this movie had, but the sound is very strange in Next of Kin. Aside from a lot of the dialogue just legitimately being difficult to hear, there were quite a few moments where there will be a sudden echo. And I don't know if that was on accident or on purpose for some reason, but either way, it was kind of distracting. The acting across the board was pretty good though, especially Linda. And as a horror movie, some scenes are better than others. There were a couple really good scares in this movie. But overall, I kind of get a feeling of missed potential. Yeah, this movie was okay, but it had the potential to be a lot better. It was interesting in some of the ways that this was made, but they didn't go far enough with it. And even though this is probably not fair, to compare it to The Shining is a lot better. To sum up, Next of Kin wasn't bad, it just wasn't that good. And now I want to talk about a few spoilers. For almost the entire movie, I thought that they were going for like a haunted house supernatural type of thing. There were the normal scenes of things happening without anybody there to do them. There was seeing people in the window, then going up to the room and they're not there anymore. And yes, all those things could also be because of an intruder, but the way that it was shot and done, especially they showed us Linda's dreams, I thought there was something paranormal happening. That turned out to not be the case, and the case was not explained very well, at least not to me. Linda goes through the records and sees that the medical records of the deaths at the old folks' home don't match up with what her mother said in her diaries about those exact same deaths. Her mother keeps talking about people drowning in the tub, people dying in the tub, people found dead in the tub. But they seem to have one specific doctor for this place. His records keep saying that they were dying of things like pneumonia, bronchitis, a coma, just things that aren't drowning in a bathtub. There also seems to be conflicted reports as to whether or not her aunt died or lived. Now, the man and woman under suspicion do act very suspicious, but I guess it's a red herring. Except I don't really understand why they were acting the way they were if they didn't have something to do with these murders. But apparently they weren't in on it because they were killed too. The actual murderer was that aunt. And apparently this is all to get revenge on Linda's mother for sending her off to another facility? Except she died before the movie even started, so how is this getting revenge? I mean, if they killed her, they don't say that, so I don't understand why all these other murders are happening. It's not just Aunt Rita, it's also Aunt Rita's son, Kelvin. He chases around Linda with a hammer in a way very reminiscent of Jack chasing Wendy around with an axe in The Shining. There's also some other things like dead bodies in bathtubs or a scene where she's in a bathroom and the killer is on the other side of the door trying to break in. It also ends with a gigantic explosion, which the book The Shining ended with as well. Maybe this is just a coincidence, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some inspiration from The Shining for this movie. I think the biggest problem with the Next of Kin is that it's just kind of hard to follow. Things just happen, and if they're explained, they're not explained very well. I think this movie might have been better if they actually did go with the haunted house thing. That would also work well with the theme of Linda feeling like she's losing her mind. Pretty much up until like the last second with the reveal, it felt like it could have been a ghost or a demon or something. But no, it's just Linda's aunt, and her motivations aren't explained very well. My favorite scare in the movie was one that was actually pretty subtle. There's this fountain outside the building, and after the red herring of thinking that the worker and the doctor are killing people, Linda goes and gets Barney, and then they come back, and she doesn't want to go in, and he just wants to go in and check, and while he's inside, the fountain slowly goes from pouring out water to pouring out blood. When Linda goes up to the fountain, she sees that there's a dead body in there. I guess the implication is that since it's circulating the water that's already there, it got more and more blood in it, though I don't understand why the water suddenly turned red once they came up, since how long would that body have been there? Again, that would make a lot more sense if there was actually a ghost doing it. Maybe I just had unfair expectations for this movie, but it really didn't end up going the way I thought it was going to, and the way that I thought it would have been better going to. I still think it worked overall, but my main emotion coming out of this movie is kind of just confusion. It's almost like they had two different ideas for a story and somehow tried to do both of them. So I guess when you look at it that way, it's kind of impressive that the movie still came out on top in the end. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.